We can
Do we
go
say
in
the
cold.
NAP before or after the recording?
It was already stated when you agreed to come onto the show that you have to respect our NAP and that we may or may not respect yours.
What is that?
Non-aggression pact.
Oh,
Private
sorry.
property is sacred above all else.
But you can murder people on
Good.
your I don't know.
On your property?
It's
Are you
literally
saying people are
some-
property because that's offensive?
Well,
Wait.
Murray Rothbard would disagree with that and say, yes, people can be property.
Under
Then
the
you can't
age of
murder,
18.
So you can't
Yeah.
have it both ways.
Yeah,
Nice.
under the age of 18, you should be able to sell your children.
But
Why not?
that is the literal like weird contradiction of Murray Rothbard stuff. I think I've mentioned it before on the podcast, but like he was like, there's property and then there's people, and then he tried to square the way because he was like socially conservative. He tried to square the way the idea that like okay, but like under 18-year-olds don't have like full agency. You know, they can't drink, they can't vote. Therefore, they're property. Because I've I've like painted myself into this dichotomy corner of property versus people. So all under 18-year-olds, and then it literally just yeah. But then it literally gets to the whole just sell your children for profit.
On the flip side, you could think about it like to be human is to like be the uber like commodity, to like spend 18 years gestating as a commodity, and then you unleash yourself in your full
The synthesis or the
existence.
ANCAP synthesis?
This is a
This
This
is
is a
kind of like
synthesis,
it's the like modern, comfortable, like developed country world. We all get to be humans until the age of 18, and then we're forced to work and pay rent. And
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
he
love
has-
being commodified.
We all do, but yeah, Murray Rothbard has this like massive defense of indentured servitude as well. Also, in the sense of that, then it was like because he was against slavery, but then when you voluntarily,
Contracts.
if you voluntarily become a slave, that's technically a
It's your free will.
It's balanced budgeting.
yeah, it's your free will to then make a contract to then do this shit. So Murray Rothbard says, why shouldn't you be able to? That's the highest extent of freedom. And you should also be able to do that for your children because, again, like they can't decide for themselves.
No, yeah. They're property until the age of 18.
Yeah.
Yes.
And if you want to be property, you can also be property.
That's an interesting thing.
But to be
Don't yuck someone's yum.
No, but-
Murray Rothbard.
to be very, very fair, that was legitimately one of the first policies of coming to like settler colonial places was to make yourself property.
Yeah.
Not like voluntarily, not slavery. Obviously, slavery is a whole other different thing. But
Yeah.
we got to see some like ANCAP shit in action, like in the 1700s.
Yeah, because that's where all the Irish people in the United States came from. It's just like, you can go to the New World if you work for this like one German lad for a billion years.
A billion.
It wasn't that long.
Billion
You'd also
years.
get land too at the end of it.
Yeah,
Like,
no, you were
At the end of the
This
billion
is the
years.
whole thing of like, because this is where the whole Irish people were the first slaves.
yeah, the white
or,
nationalist bullshit.
or like
yeah.
the Irish were slaves too thing comes from. It was like, well, no, it was indentured servitude, and to be fair, there are a lot of stories of people just being like, I've done my 25 years. My contract says it's up. I was like, oh, this contract says 35 years. And then they
that
would
is
just keep
true.
rolling. But like
keep rolling.
going back to new metal, the source of all leftism. No, but like I think the big one that I found always convinced Irish people who would yammer on about that was our children weren't automatically indentured servants. Like that's not how that worked. That's the very key material difference between slavery and indentured servitude.
Yeah.
Even if there was all this contract fuckery going on. Yeah.
Yeah, chattel slavery made it so that your kids, depending on who the mother
No,
was.
the mother, yeah.
Yeah, because Thomas Jefferson would have freed a lot of slaves if that was the case.
Yep.
But yeah, no, they actually there's that weird court case that then legitimately flips that around because it used to be if your father was not a slave, then you could
Be free.
then the child
yeah.
who was born wouldn't be a slave.
Yeah.
And then a lot of slave owners had the problem
That
of
they
raping their
raped, yeah.
So then they changed it around. So like, oh well, this is like free labor for me then at this point.
Oh my god.
Yeah, yeah, fucked up.
Yeah, I know.
So yeah.
That is very Murray Rothbard.
Yep.
All right, let's start. This could have been an hour and a half episode right there.
Hey, it's time for your weekly corner Späti. I am your one of your regular Späti in Kieran here with all the usual Späti in Julia.
Oh, I'm first.
Yes.
Wow, that's awesome. Hi.
So people don't misinterpret that my in joke is not one of those like chud German. There's too many rules about gender jokes because that happens quite a bit. Also, Rob.
Hi, guys.
And of course, our great boy, Nick.
Hello.
And we have a special guest with us today. Oh my goodness. Why don't you introduce ourselves? Yoni, tell us about yourself.
Thank you, everyone. You can call me Yoni or Yonatan, and I think it's important to note I am Jewish, so I will be your token Jew for tonight.
Yes.
Completely unrelated to our topic. We just wanted to say that.
Rob, stop it. Jig up, you fools. Yes, today's episode, we're tackling a relatively big topic. We're going to be talking about Antideutsch. Don't at us.
To the few anti-Deutsch people who did follow us last week, sorry.
Well,
It isn't. I would say it is not a niche thing though, because while it is very niche in German, it does represent the broader situation that the left in general and the left in Europe is in, and I hope we can excavate some of the German mindset and European leftist mindset with viewing some of our, I don't know, my favorite thinkers.
So let's first answer, who are the Antideutsch? I mean, it literally translates to anti-German, but it's almost an exclusively German movement of anti-Germans.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they formed, correct me if I'm wrong, in the 1990s during the resurgence of the reunification of Germany. And the anniversary just came up November 9th in 1989. So, yay, happy 30 years, depending on what side you'll stand on.
thanks.
30 years of peaceful, perfect. What do all the banners say? The peaceful revolution or whatever.
Revolution.
Can we get some David Hasselhoff playing in the background, Nick?
Yeah, it should always be some David Hasselhoff if you talk about Wende.
Yeah. We can't ignore the fact that this episode is coming out a day after the German anniversary of
Everything.
everything. There's too much history in this country. The wall coming down, Kristallnacht. What was the third one?
The Kaiser.
The
Kaiser abdicates.
The beer hall putsch from
crying out
Nazism.
loud, Germany.
There's something about the state. I don't know.
So, this is actually German purge. Everyone stay indoors.
Well, it's the flip of there's no more history. History's over. It's like, you get history, but one day. That's it.
Yeah.
Before we go into that, though, Kieran finally has a special treat for all of us once again that I've been missing because I want to come back on top.
Yes, you want to come back. Oh, yeah. Julia's
See about that.
Yes, it's time for the Megarika competition. Megarika, you have to say it like that. It's a Swedish word. Anyway, yes, it's the competition where I get everyone else in the podcast to guess, based on these pieces of information, where this obscenely rich, wealthy person in Europe is from. Currently leading, I think, is Julia.
Hey.
You may be able to guess by the tone that Nick at one point was on top.
I know rich people.
Also because you study Eastern European politics, which is basically the same way of just saying rich Eastern European people.
Yeah, elitism is a fun topic.
A lot of overlap there. All right. So, net worth of this person, 8.6 billion. Why are they rich? Biotech, investments, yacht racing, and having a dead dad.
All right.
I love that one.
Yeah.
Biotech is a strong start.
Yeah.
I love everything biotech related. I hope they're building the cyborgs of the future. I hope they literally own the planet Camino from the Star Wars prequels.
We've created that in a petri dish.
I mean, I don't even know which corporations involved. There's Monsanto, which is now owned by Bayern, and what's that other big chemical plant in Germany?
Bayer and
It's like this acronym of 4 letters.
Yeah,
I've never heard.
BASF. That one. No, that's wait. Is that chemical?
I don't know. Yeah, but you're right.
Bas.
Right.
The one that has that really ugly building at Warschauerstraße.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, with that thingy, the nice building on the bottom that used to probably be like a factory, and then that weird glass thing on the top.
They built something on top there. You can see if you want to see the other one. The bio one is in Wedding.
Kind of metaphoric.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
kind of a metaphor, though.
Let's not forget about Bayer here. We are recording this in Wedding, which is partly owned basically by Bayer.
That is true. Yeah,
It's
We
like
can
a
make
whole
field trip.
It's like a whole Keats. This is basically just the Bayer campus.
Yeah, it literally looks like a galactic prison
Yeah.
on a faraway, something.
If any of our if
Many of our prisoners have escaped police return.
I mean, it's only recently that I realized also that like the B in BMW stands for Bayern, and it's like the most unimaginative thing of just like promote our state, Bayern.
Yeah.
Oh,
but if any of our listeners wish they lived in like a planned a company community like Pullman, Chicago, just move to Wedding.
All right.
It's not a name of a billionaire though.
No. Piece of information number 1. His country is one that's fairly common. No. His story is one that's fairly common in his country. His family has been rich since basically the Renaissance, and his daddy owned a pharmaceutical company that's existed since 1900. And then in 1998, he dies like an idiot. And this Megarika inherits the company. The Megarika is credited for making the company more money by suggesting the company do more research. This research included falsifying reports that a new hormone drug they created for preventing AIDS wasting, worked. The company waved away the poor research and poor results by bribing doctors with all expenses paid trip to France. This resulted in a class action lawsuit and the 9th largest pharma lawsuit in U.S. history.
Okay, that would be Monsanto related.
Whoa, okay, we got someone with some knowledge in here.
Piece of information number 2. Other genius money-making schemes this Megarika has done was start a yacht racing team for his country.
Normal rich dude shit.
Yeah.
company country.
What's the difference?
Yeah, right.
According to Murray Rothbard.
It's all the same.
The yacht racing team lost a lot.
Oh.
Until they campaigned for a rule change that would allow them to buy racers from other more seafaring countries.
King. What a king. I really like his, who's the owner of the Sixers?
I don't know. It's shared owners.
Yeah, but who's the one who just, drove the team into the ground, last decade?
You're thinking of the GM, Sam Hinkie?
Yeah. Yeah. That's, really, king mentality like that. We'll be so shit that then we can just rewrite the rules. And then we'll be good. That's boss mentality.
Technically, it's exploiting the rules as they exist. They change the rules to stop it. I'm going to say unreported, completely baseless, but I believe this to be true. The biotech CEO did tons of experiments on the yacht racers to somehow improve their yacht racing ability.
Enhancement performance.
Yeah, some certain
human
performance
enhancement.
enhancements.
Yeah, they're all on PEDs. That's cool. We support that.
Oh, God. Sorry. I continue with this fact. He also sold his company to a much larger German pharma company known
Monsanto to Bayern.
as one does.
known for price fixing. He's also invested in startups like 23andMe so that he can have a fucking pharma deal on buying people's genetic information.
That's scary.
Lastly, he has a foundation, which is largely a large tax write-off, an advertising vehicle as it primarily talks about how great his company's pills are, and tech, and he brings yacht racing to underprivileged communities. I am not making that up.
What's his view on refugees?
Oh, God.
They need to be doing more yacht racing.
It's really inspirational.
It's very inspirational, yes.
Oh my God.
Fact number 3, and a classic for Megarika. The degree of separation between him and a family relative that's involved in music. All right. He got married to former Miss UK 1988 model and singer-songwriter Christy maiden name Roper, who also came second in Miss World. She's from a British... She's from a British ceramic conglomerate family, and after her brief modelling career that lasted 1 year, 1988,
Good year.
she moved to London and became a singer-songwriter. She still makes music. We'll listen afterwards.
Nice.
Good. But is most famous for writing the song Black Coffee by All Saints, which they were a big UK band. Do you know All Saints?
Yeah, I do.
No, I don't.
No, I don't think they ever broke the States.
No.
She's heavily involved in the Smiling Children Foundation.
These again. What the fuck?
That's actually the biotech they do. They force miserable people to smile all the time. Yeah. Just inject their face again and again until they smile.
Which she donates a lot of money to and also writes music for.
Oh, good.
This was the foundation that knighted previous Polish Megarika Dominika Kulczyk with her title Knight of the Order of the Smile.
Oh,
So it's a
yeah, I
bit of a-
remember.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
So those are your 3 pieces of information about this Megarika. I'm
Wow.
gonna give Yoni first guess here on where this person is from.
I mean, he's definitely not the person who would marry someone from the same country. He's definitely not Polish or British. That's for sure.
Yep.
I think we already had both those countries, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yes, we did actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll let.
Yeah, the
Yoni
guess is
know.
really at a disadvantage.
No, I'll let Yoni know if he's. If you say a country we've already done.
I believe he's from Austria.
Okay.
I thought Austria was the Glock guy. Maybe he's
No. We haven't had Austria yet.
Okay.
No.
We had
Really?
Switzerland, right? No, I didn't
No,
have that.
Switzerland's on the
I was
table.
also thinking like Austria or Switzerland. So.
Austria does not because it's the Red Bull guy. I know that for a fact.
Yeah, the Red Bull guy. We talked about this.
Okay,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
say
yeah.
Switzerland.
I don't know. Where's Monsanto from?
I actually don't
I mean,
know.
that is Bavarian.
Lich-
Monsanto's not, sorry.
Liechtenstein.
You're saying Liechtenstein.
Yeah.
Everyone's going this very German energy, right?
I mean, it is the Antideutsch episode.
That's a good point.
You know what? I'm gonna go with our tiny European countries on the table right
Yes.
Oh wait.
now. Oh wait, no, that's like too tiny.
Bavaria?
Bavaria's its own country, yes.
How much money do you have?
8.6 billion.
That's a lot.
I don't
it's not
for
that
the-
much.
I-
not that
the
much.
thing about
How many
it-
avocados can you buy with that?
It's the only way I understand money.
I don't know. 8?
Because like Switzerland, they're rich,
I'm thinking.
aren't they?
Yeah, I'm thinking Switzerland wouldn't be it because
Yeah,
it
because
would
they're
be
rich.
finance, whatever.
Yeah,
dark
shit.
But that person may not have their money in Switzerland. It may be like Cayman Islands or some shit. So I was gonna also say Switzerland because that seems like a legitimate business that a person in Switzerland would do.
Right, I think they're
Yeah.
very much into like biotech and yard racing.
Yeah, that sounds normal.
Even though they don't have.
And there's not.
See.
Oh yeah, whatever. But you're rich. You can go to the sea. you
Good.
know?
I mean, if I was living in a mountain, I would buy a yacht and live on the yacht.
Yeah, and then just like glide
And
up,
the snow.
I would bring the sea to my country if I were rich.
Yeah.
bomb every country below Switzerland until you have an ocean.
I think that's just Slovenia.
Okay.
Poor
Yeah.
Slovenia.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Switzerland.
Okay, so you guys were all very good. You all immediately picked up on the energy this person was putting down.
We were all wrong though.
Yeah, all wrong.
Oh, no. Both Julia and Nick get a point. This is Switzerland.
Yay!
Ernesto Bertelli. Bertarelli.
Ernesto.
Ernesto
very
Bertarelli.
Switzerlandish name.
He inherited basically the company Serrano, which is a pharma company from Switzerland, which has. I need to figure out which, because Yoni was coming with the knowledge. Which German company did they sell this to again? The Merck Group.
Oh, Merck. Yeah,
Merck.
Ah.
Yeah.
they're Austrian though. I think, right? Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The Merck Group, yes, and yeah. So this is what this guy does. He fixes yacht racing. His charity, which is literally called the the Ernesto Bertarelli Foundation
For yacht racing.
for yacht. No, so it's the most confused foundation ever because it is mostly just like, well, they basically give the pills that their company makes away to like underprivileged communities, but then also use that as a means of like talking about like how great the pills are. Please ignore that giant scandal where the AIDS wasting drug we made didn't fucking work. that, but also in the similar vein, because he obviously came along and said, like, can we do this for my yacht racing thing? So now there's also a wing of this charity that has like a yacht racing team that all the kids come from underprivileged communities. And what I imagine is one of those like 90s teacher goes into the inner city projects, sits backwards in the chair and teaches all the kids how to yacht race kind of movie.
His wife comes in and starts singing like the Barney song and handing out pills. And it's like, let's all be happy, everybody.
Speaking of which,
No, we'll listen to the song later.
we'll listen to the song later.
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh,
cool.
okay.
All
But
right.
you know how I like kind of like knew about
it in
that
the show
thanks
notes.
to my job, because when I researched for biotech, like for
Thanks, Andy, for providing a soundtrack.
if I research for the topic of biotech, I have a lot of like companies from Switzerland actually when it comes to Europe. So like the Eastern Europe doesn't really have any.
They're
And
done
it's like-
making their cyborgs.
Yeah.
That's some Soviet shit. We don't want no part of that.
So yeah, thanks to my job.
I mean, most of the biotech in the world is what, like US, France,
Yeah.
Switzerland, Germany.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm just wondering, like, is there also like a underprivileged children's like F1 team or something like that? Like
The F2.
that exists.
Yeah.
Yeah, F2 exists.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's funny when it's real. Sorry.
Yeah,
But yeah,
it's below F1.
I really like the idea that, there is just some sort of, no matter how ridiculous the luxury sport is, there is some like insane billionaire out there who has made like an underprivileged dressage team. I really like that idea.
Fencing or polo.
Yeah.
Golf.
So I was right that Switzerland is the planet Camino. Obi-Wan's like
It
a
is.
German who like goes down to Switzerland for their meeting and is like, so we're gonna hide all the gold here.
Yeah, in the scene where Hanso is talking to Guido, that language he's speaking is Romansh.
Cool. All right.
We're talking main topic now.
Yeah, let's put Switzerland up on the big board, everybody.
I mean, I am going to Zurich next week, and it really has nothing to do with what we just discussed now. Trust me on this.
But now you have a useless piece of knowledge of who's the richest person on paper in that country.
Wait, let's just go back to the 23andMe quickly. So this company owns 23andMe, or they invested in it, or what?
He, as
Yes.
an individual angel investor, is like,
Yeah.
He
the
also
biggest.
owns the individual DNA of every single
Yeah,
person.
exactly. He's the me. He's like, you're 23 or with me.
Is 23 like
Me
the
and
upper
the
or the
23.
lower limit?
Oh no! Oh no! It's going into Murray Rothbard territory
Yeah.
again.
Okay.
Right. So how do we kick off our discussion of?
I wish there was
Antideutsch.
like a song, like an Antideutsch song or something.
There's a lot of Antideutsch bands. We can put
That's
a
true.
playlist
Oh,
up.
that is true.
What are some of them? What's the one with the 3 words in their name?
Finds on a fish.
No.
No, but they're not
Antideutsch.
Antideutsch. Yeah.
Okay, I don't know.
Atari something?
Atari Teenage Riot?
Yeah.
Ah.
They're Antideutsch.
Yeah, I mean, I
think I listened to them.
Kieran's
mean,
cancelled.
they were always played at every fucking like anti-Nazi demonstration that I went to when I was young, because I grew up in Germany. So I really like encountered a lot of Antifa, Anti-Deutsch Gruppen.
Well, I got another one.
Groups.
Literally every single white German DJ from the 90s.
They're all
Antideutsch
Anti-Deutsch.
artists. Yeah.
Christ.
I got no one. I don't know. I just like have seen them.
I mean, Atari Teenage Riot is basically the music that all anti-Deutsche groups play in Germany, like at every protest, demonstration or something, or cool party at a squatted house.
That must get like really boring though. Then you have one band that you only listen to.
Yeah, but it's fun.
One of the band slaps.
Yeah, seriously.
Okay. Yeah, I guess you were kind of getting into it before we found out about our good boy from Switzerland. I'm about to say Sweden, some stupid. But,
It's the same.
Just
Yeah.
start with the SW. It's really confusing.
Yeah.
It's super confusing when you say it in Russian because it sounds really similar. But anyway,
I mean, like, for me, the hardest thing in general is, like, when you talk about Jews in Germany, like, you're either talking about two things. One is this very constructed idea, whether you're anti-Semitic or whether you love Jews. And, like, when you actually are talking about the humans, most Jews today in Germany are immigrants. Like, there isn't really that native German Jewish community. Like, if you go to the Alte Neue Synagogue, one of these old synagogues in Oranienburgstrasse, most of the Jews that go there are Russian Jews. Most of the prayer books are Russian. And, like, I'm an American Jew. Half of my family is from Netherlands. And there's also not much of a Dutch Jewish community. And so it's this really frustrating discourse where, you know, I'm, like, defending the museum director of the Jewish museum. He's not Jewish himself, Peter Schaefer. And it's against other Antideutsch, most who are not Jewish. So this is the Jews are absent from this whole discourse about anti-Semitism. And it's not that it's a victimless crime, but it's a very intellectualized, and that's, I think, where it differs from other kinds of discriminations, where there's a much less of a intellectualized, proselytized discourse around this.
Well, okay. Maybe we should, for the people who don't know, we should maybe explain what, in general, we're talking about when we talk about Antideutsch. Maybe you've seen random Israel flags at German protests, or you've seen very interesting comments online of German leftists, especially self-declared anarchists, being very, very pro-Israel for some reason. Maybe, like you said, you've seen it in some music scene, like especially some DJs or clubs in Berlin, canceling certain shows for some reason.
Which we wanted to go to.
It's the whole reason we're doing this episode.
Because I'm really pissed.
Yeah, I'd like to Golden Poodle one more time. Stop being racist so I can go back to your club. I had fun there. Yeah. But, like, I don't know. So,
I mean, this is, like, the most visible Anti-Deutsche, like the ones who are waving Israeli flags. And, like, I was at the Unteilbar in Dresden, and for the first time, actually, I saw, like, a leftist wearing an Israel Defense Force green olive shirt. I've heard about this, but I've never seen that. And I've been here for 4 years.
Yeah, you have that. You have the American flags as well. That's an interesting combination.
Are they still is it still as pro-American, the movement, as it was in, like...
But, I mean, there's
I thought it was
like
9/11 was the big thing. Like, we have to
Yeah,
protect America,
and it's still like there's still this narrative. It's still this narrative of, like, the protectors of Israel. So, like, the US as the protectors of Israel, and anything that comes with it, like imperialism. Like, when it comes to American imperialism, it's actually interesting because it's you have the anti-imperialist anti-Semitism, and you have the imperialist anti-Semitism, anti-Semitism, and, like, when it comes to Antideutsch, you actually have this, like, imperialism, or sometimes you have this, like, defense of imperialism, which is especially American, for example, or.
Yeah, like, for some of our U.S. listeners, you might be familiar with the Platypus Society. Chris Crouton, there was a big scandal where, like, he made this necessitated argument in defense of colonialism of Native Americans, and gives very colonial arguments how it was necessary to advance society and for the expansion of socialism. And it's just really awful arguments that he makes.
But it's absolutely, one thing I wanted to get at is, I wouldn't say the ideas of the quote-unquote anti-Deutsch, which is more of a, just sort of phenomenon. Well, it's like that instead of, like, a single group of people, it's often, or what's interesting or worth talking about it, is that it parallels other kind of, like, liberal or right-wing, like, instrumentalizations of Israel or anti-Semitism. Like, there's a kind of there's parallels between exactly what you said and some of the defenses they make of Israel in as, like, bringing, like, civilization or kind of, like, progress to a region, and that also links up with what a lot of German liberals, not declared anti-Deutsch, just feel about Israel.
I mean, so there's the two things. Like, one is it's a very intellectualized ideology, and their, like, father figure. Should I say Vater?
Let's get into it.
Would be Adorno, and
Adorno.
Sorry.
Like, is Adorno actually anti-Deutsch himself?
No.
No, he's not. No, but I mean, he made there are a lot of Adorno quotes, and they like to quote him a lot. It's kind of like a weird Adorno groupie situation. I don't know. I like it's.
I just love like 60-year-old bald men.
No, but seriously, like you don't find, I think, an anti-Deutsche that doesn't love Adorno or quotes him like from time to time.
But that happens all the time, especially with like left tendencies, because like left communism absolutely loves Rosa Luxemburg.
But Rosa Luxemburg's
she's
easy
cool.
to quote, and her stuff actually like makes sense.
Okay, yeah.
Adorno, like Adorno is like it's not that like Adorno's like genuinely like bad, or that he's inherently like that anti-Deutsch stuff is like inherently then in his stuff. It's just that Adorno being kind of like one of the father figures of like critical theory, can just give you these like really good empty quotes that then you never like. What's his one about like there's no poetry after Auschwitz?
Well, he says, Gedichte nach Auschwitz wären barbarisch, also sind Barbarei, or something like that.
And that's always like a quote that's taken out of context, because Adorno then like a few years later like regretted saying that, saying that then like, of course, like I didn't mean this in this context, this and that, but obviously then it doesn't take away from the fact that that's a good quote to like just throw out and to like sound smart, that actually like doesn't really have all that much meaning when you start peeling it back.
It's beautiful. It sounds nice.
Yeah.
That's the thing, like the anti-Deutsch claim to reject identity politics, but they're the biggest hypocrite on this. And there's two fronts, like we talk about the guilt complex, and I think it's two things. It is one, like their grandparents, a lot of them were Nazis, but I think the second thing is like you didn't have these Auschwitz trials until the 60s and the 70s, so it's not just what their grandparents did, but it's how their parents, they just kind of were the silent generation and didn't actually make any recuperative measures. So it's a lot closer and personal. It's not just this thing from 80 years ago. It's also this thing from 40 years ago, 50 years ago.
I have the feeling that they kind of wish themselves back in like a situation like you had in the 60s, for example. So they idealized a lot of stuff that was happening there. So you had Adorno, you had Frankfurter Schule being one of the main lines of like sociology and philosophy during that time, and like a very mainstream in student groups and at university. So they kind of wish to go back to that, and it's actually interesting because a lot of the time it just ends up in being like empty analytical critique of stuff. So there's like nothing.
Damn, how German of them.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, and this is a little. What would the logic nerds say? Ad hominem. But to just picture the anti-Deutsch, just picture the most stereotypical white Germans you can imagine in a group being like, we hate Germany. Like, I'm sorry, I understand I am a white cis male from the Imperial Corps. I understand that this identity is problematic. You don't want it. You are rejecting it in the wrong way. You are like further instrumentalizing this whole thing by blocking off. Well, we're going to get to it later.
But there's also not only white anti-Deutsche. Like there's a noticeable trend where you have like Turkish people of German descent, Germans of Turkish descent, where in order to kind of assimilate and integrate, they take on this identity and also collective responsibility. And that's a very German thing, like this kind of collective atonement that like you definitely do not have in Austria or other countries, and that has a positive aspect to it.
Yeah, you actually have like a bigger group. I wouldn't say it's like only German, like whatever,
Aryan.
German, Aryan Germans.
It's not a real thing, just to be clear.
Yep.
I don't like when Julia says it.
I won't say
it scares me.
I'm sorry. No, but you have like this big group around like newspapers like Taz, for example, also like Iranian Antideutsch or something like that affiliate with the group. And I mean, when I grew up in an Antideutsch, I grew whatever with like, but around them. That sounds like
you cohabitated and ate food that was put on a plate in front of you, but it
was probably hummus.
We had the same kufa, for example.
Yeah, they probably only served Israeli dishes.
Yeah, only hummus. No, but it was like it was mostly like kind of like intellectual, a lot of males, a lot of guys are
It's
into
just like
it.
left
It's
circles in general, though. I think, especially in Germany.
But it has this feeling like of this like 1960s, I don't know, like in the beginning, like male-dominated, new left, Adorno loving
Right.
feeling.
Yeah.
But why can't they be like the 1960s cool left?
Which
And
one?
would
Which?
just-
But that's the question: where are they actually cool? Like we have this romanticized.
Yeah, true. Damn it. I don't know, because like Adorno like
Meinhof
shat
complex
on them.
Netflix premiere.
Yeah, damn it.
Yeah.
Because Adorno like shat on them, and then like they didn't like him anymore.
Yeah. True.
Wait, so I want to go back to Adorno. So what about Adorno, other than the fact that he's just a prominent German thinker,
Yeah.
so he's quoted a lot. What is it like? I think most people would associate a kind of fatalism to Adorno, like your quote said. And from my interpretation, it's like there's nothing, going back to like the guilt of Germany, there's nothing that can be done. I would even say there's no politics that can happen in Germany.
I mean, you can just
anymore.
summarize it in this one quote that is, I think, the quote, the Adorno quote, and probably the most favorite of every Antideutsche is, es gibt kein Leben, kein richtiges Leben im Falschen. So there's no right life in the wrong life. So you can't actually do anything.
Yeah,
So-
which is why Adorno's like probably one of the like shittiest Marxist thinkers in my opinion, because just so, like, because like exactly like that fatalism
Es
that
gibt-
then is
yeah.
inherent in most critical theory that like comes into like the like
He takes-
post World War II.
He takes the most prominent question on the left of what is to be done and says nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah, literally.
Studiert.
And every Marxist is admit to the inherent oppressiveness of the state, but they say that the state must wither under certain conditions. And the Antideutsche argue that Germany must be the first nation state to go and Israel the last.
Yeah.
And beyond that, they might have a general critique of nation states.
That energy always reminded me of like, it's like the same energy as, I don't know if you're on Twitter and you see like an American liberal be like, all right, here's the plan. It's going to be a Kamala and Pete Buttigieg ticket, and then Kamala's going to resign after a year and a half so that Pete Buttigieg has time to warm up, and then he's going to take over as president. It's like, that's not how anything works. Like, it's not a little like, I don't know, puzzle you put together in the order you want.
He's gonna make Hillary Clinton his vice president, and then he's gonna resign, and then Hillary Clinton's gonna become president of the United States.
But
No.
yeah, but this is the whole thing that like upsets me about the fact that they call themselves anarchists. Is like you don't have a preference of states. That's not what anarchists want.
But that's like
Karen,
the
I have it
question,
here.
Are they actually anarchists? Like they're against
yeah,
the
no, they're
German,
not.
they're against the German nation state, but I
Yeah.
see them as Marxists.
Yeah, no,
Being
I don't-
against the German
Everybody
nation
knows.
state doesn't make you an anarchist.
I don't
Yeah.
say
But-
them as Marxist either
No.
because they're pretty freaking just straight up like lib when it comes to
Exactly,
most of
and
their stuff.
that is the thing. So like you have actually you have like some very famous magazines in Germany, like Bahamas magazine, for example, or what's the other one? Something with two.
I mean, so Junge Welt and Jungle World.
Jungle
World,
World,
yeah.
not Jungle.
Yeah, Junge Welt
Jungle-
Jungle World was Junge Welt.
Yeah.
and they split up because of the.
They didn't want to break the
Antideutsch.
Because
acronym. I
of the
respect that.
Antideutsch thing, and there's this other one. I forgot about it, but
Those are the main two.
but there's
Oh,
this,
concrete.
Concrete
Yeah,
is one
Concrete's
of them.
also one.
but
There's also
Concrete
the
sometimes-
ISF.
If I don't see an
from-
Späti, it doesn't count.
ISF, Concrete, and you have in the media you sometimes have like very anti-Deutsche positions, even though they also publish opposite opinions.
It's 2019. Let's not shit on the indie media. Like
Yeah,
they need
yeah,
all
no,
the support
no.
they can get
Yeah,
And,
I know. yeah.
and the relevance.
And Jacobin magazine.
no, sorry. But yeah, they do. That's true. What
I'm
did
just
I want to
imagining
say?
Ada like with their big Jacobin Deutschland, whatever. It's like the big reopenings coming in January, and they're opening cover is just like a giant Israeli flag or something. We listen, Germany. We know what you want on the in left politics.
I just imagine them like too, just also like just putting a poll up, like should we be anti-Deutsch? Like we were considering it.
No, I forgot what I wanted to talk about. No, Bahamas, for example. Like Bahamas, I think is the worst.
Should we go through the history quickly up to Bahamas just so we know
Okay.
with the Vita,
Go for it.
with the Venda and everything. But sorry, I just want to so someone mentioned earlier that 1989 is like a crucial year for all of this because you have, I think, we never talked about it. It was on a lost episode, right? Like it's very interesting the situation in Germany, what happens in 1989, because like West Germany basically just absorbed the GDR.
Yeah.
Like, and it's even in the constitution. You probably know more than me than this. Like the German constitution as it exists now, because it's still the 1945 constitution. It is like states itself as like an incomplete
52 Constitution.
Yeah, sorry, 52. It states itself as like this is it.
I was really adamant about that.
This is like a temporary Verfassung until we like unite all of Germany together because we are split right now. And there's even some like Reichsbürger that say, well, we don't have all of Germania yet. We have to keep adding to it. So you have this, but all of this happens even though this is like I find the document and the logic of the FRG from the past, like very right wing. You have this kind of like this triumphalism, this triumphant like mindset of like 1989, and peace has come and everything is good and grand, but it's really like a hostile takeover, right, of in defeat of communism, at least as it plays out on the legal political level. Yeah, go ahead.
It was also like in the GDR, I mean, they had always the official position of anti-fascism. I mean, all their ambassadors could not be former Nazi members, whereas in the West you had many Nazi members from all of civil society. That said, I don't think GDR really took anti-Semitism serious. And it's not a shock or a surprise that after the reunification, you see this upsurge in far-right neo-Nazi movements in GDR.
Yeah.
Like, the Rostock attack and the
Exactly.
Vietnamese
I was
workers'
about to
house.
say that, yeah, exactly, because that was the fear that I think Antideutsch was born from, was actually the fear of this happening. Like, after reunification, like growing nationalism, German nationalism coming back into power, like, or being like a thing that happens again, and the like lacking critique, of anti-Semitism in the GDR, because you were, well, by definition, you weren't an anti-Semite when you were from the GDR, because like the belief of you don't have to make a critique because it's not there, it doesn't exist, and then with the Rostock attacks kind of like confirming the fear of the Antideutsche movement, of like saying, okay, this is like now Germany is back in full power, and yeah.
I'm just curious of being a dumb non-German. Is there then a connection then between that, because the GDR had a very open position that was pro-Palestine too, that then anti-Deutsch like internalized as well, because there is inherently like within like the support of the socialist movements that were, whatever the international they were a part of, or whatever that they were promoting. I mean, I saw a picture on Twitter the other day that was really sick, by the way, of a postage stamp from like the 60s or 70s that was like solidarity with Palestine, and it had like these really beautifully drawn like a socialist modernist art sort of thing of a man and a woman like being strong, Palestinian socialists or whatever. And I could see that become like internalized of that then like in the worldview of it, like, okay, the GDR, one, they didn't address anti-Semitism. True. They I don't think that they did ever really. I mean, like they addressed the fact that they were anti-fascist, but never really in the sense of like the Soviet Union in general had a very weird thing of addressing what the Holocaust was. Even though they had officially a position of against anti-Semitism, it was never actually really addressed.
I mean, you see it in the monuments that are on the non-existing monument. It depends. Or you see it like in the monument, they didn't know how to deal with it, so they portrayed Jewish people, for example, in Riga, as like working class heroes, in the sense of, because how do we address something that is probably like not in the context of propaganda of like working class heroes, for example. So,
I mean, I'm happy to have Emma Goldman or Luxemburg be my Polish working class hero, but I'm sure they didn't see it that way. To your point, like, I mean, if you ask any historian, the history is much more complex for both sides. The Soviet Union was one of the countries that ratified the Israeli state in 1948, and this position has changed. I think it was in 1967, after the Six-Day War, where you had this resolution in the United Nations, Zionism is racism, which was supported by USSR, GDR, numerous other socialist countries in Latin America. I think Chile was one of those exceptions, Salvador Allende. But yeah, for sure. And you, not just in GDR, but in West Germany with the RAF, there was a lot of collaboration between RAF, the Red Army faction, and the Popular Front for Liberation of Palestine. And a lot of it, like if you read the text, the manifestos, communiques, there is anti-Semitism in that.
Yeah.
And so we can romanticize militants, etc., but like we can't whitewash that history. And so the Antideutsch, it's very easy for them to find anti-Semitic examples of Palestine solidarity and point to it. And unless you're willing to reckon with that, or it's just going to be fuel that you can't take away. And I say this as an anti-Zionist Jew, and it's a very lonely spot here.
Yeah, that's also an interesting part of Antideutsch is like there's almost, I would say, like fetishizing, like is kind of like fetishizing Jewish people or the state of Israel.
It's an Orientalism.
Yeah,
you see this with
exactly,
Biji Kurdistan. It's the same thing. Like they don't understand anything about him, but they want to raise a fist and.
Okay, yeah, exactly. It's and then not even like speaking to people and their concerns, because there's also like Jewish Antifa groups that are clearly and like very outspoken against Antideutsch and their positions, and it's a lot of the times you hear this like very in itself anti-Semitic argument, then saying like, oh, you're a self-hating Jew because you are not supporting Israel. And you hear that from Germans. This is quite problematic.
And I just want to throw in the mix, like we talked about the media. So Bahamas, I think, is like one of the most egregious anti-Deutsche media. I mean, they make thought experiments justifying the AfD, the new neo-Nazi party, because they're the only party that, quote, stands up to Islam. Yeah. And
this is another point. Yeah,
that's a spicy take.
I was wondering who made that noise. Is it Robert or
well, this is my first time hearing that there is a supposedly left-wing paper being like, yeah, AfD.
But it's not.
That's the thing. Like we need to.
Yeah. Sorry.
I mean, like we can talk about the Bahamas and be smug ourselves that we've pointed at the clear and obvious misalignment of the Antideutsch.
Yeah. You've listened to our podcast before.
I mean, there's this like string of thought of like, or you can't call it that, like of an anti-Muslim like thoughts.
You can call it what it is. It's Islamophobia.
Islamophobia, that was the word I was looking for. Thank you. Of Islamophobia in anti-Deutsche movements. And you have that a lot in Bahamas, of course, because Bahamas is like, they also have interesting, very sexist turns. And you have this, like, you see that in establishments, because in Germany you have a lot of establishments, like, can I name them? I don't know.
Go for it.
Like Coney Island, for example.
Oh, yeah, Coney Island, my favorite club.
Coney Island.
I was feeling lost, but then when they told me I could go fight in the IDF to fight fascism, then I felt like I had purpose again.
So they invited, what's his name? Tom Maul, some Bahamas boy.
Bahama boy, that's his fucking reggaeton.
They might wear that as a badge of pride, so we have to be careful.
I was like, man, they brought back the wall?
Well, yeah, he is quite known for being sexist, defending AfD positions and defending AfD. He was invited to like a reading, like a lecture series or something like that. That was actually like first supported by Rosa Luxemburg Stiftung and stuff like that. There was a lot of money in there from like leftist projects and but when they found out about like this is the guy that is writing or is heading, I think, even Bahamas magazine, they like took out all of the money for the lecture series. And the venue where it was supposed to happen, it was in Leipzig, I think.
Which is like the most important city for the Antideutsch.
Exactly,
like Berlin is number 2.
Kicked him out, or kicked this lecture series out. And who stepped in? Coney Island.
Thank goodness.
And there were, of course, there was a lot of protests, and there was actually articles about like, how far right can the left go?
Horseshoe theory, anyone?
And yeah, there's a lot of discussions, and of course with Conner Island, the thing is, you have it like it's an open panel, so you always have an open like plenum panel discussion about decisions, and a lot of the time they revise.
Iterate.
Yeah, they take back their decisions or they change them up or said, "Oh, we did something wrong," because everyone can join in these discussions, and. So it's interesting. It's weird voting stuff. Anyway, yeah, and this is like where it came to actually where this discussion started also in like left-wing media. Okay, like how can we still defend those positions, and how can you be like you claim to be a leftist space and you'd invite people that are openly sexist. He has weird Twitter takes a lot of the times.
He
weird
just sounds
tweets.
really German still. I'm sorry. Like I don't understand how these guys are anti-Deutsch when their behavior is so stereotypically German.
That is interesting because you have actually Identitäre, so like the what are they called in English?
The identitarian movement.
Yeah, exactly. You have people from from Austria, like the head, I forgot his name, the head of the identity movement, Identitäre. Identitäre, huh?
Is that
Yeah.
Identity
Yeah.
Europa?
Yeah.
This was like a French movement, French right-wing movement, and it's also quite small in Germany, but very popular.
Very
in
popular.
Greenpeace-style actions, dropping
yeah.
a banner and protect
Yeah.
our borders on Baden-Württemberg Tor.
Yeah, they do a lot of
that
like
very flashy
direct
logo
action
with the-
stuff. So
They're
to
big
say,
in Austria and Northern
they're
Italy as
super
well.
big in Austria, and this guy, like he from time to time he I think he had a YouTube video and he was agreeing with the guy from I think it was from Bahamas magazine. I could be wrong. Don't at me. Is that what
Yes,
is that
yes.
what we say?
Yes, you're in correct English.
Yeah. But actually saying like, yeah, I totally agree with this guy, I totally agree with his positions. And this is like where it gets super dangerous, when like this guy from Identitäre agrees with your positions on stuff.
You may be a Nazi.
It's interesting, yeah, because you say like you're anti-Deutsch, but you're really, as you said, like it's super.
All my
German.
friends are really into Germany.
Yeah.
Just like
It's even-
inexistent.
Well, the thing that I find that's so, because you mentioned the thing about this, like this connecting, I mean, with Identitäre Bewegung, with then the understanding of the AfD, and I can understand why someone would vote AfD if they're in a bad situation, not because of the Islamophobia, but because of the economic situation of Germany, and that then what the other parties then,
Yeah,
the reality of German politics. You have a new party that comes. You're not really politically literate, which is a completely normal thing. The left needs to capitalize on that and make their message better. And since they don't do that, I can understand if you feel lost in the German spectrum of politics. Then the AfD, who's promising you all these things, that for you then seems like an alternative. I can understand that. But their Islamophobia being the thing that you relate to, like that's fucking buck wild. Like that is so weird and so. Yeah, back to it. So really like just stereotypically German of like, oh yeah, these economic factors, yeah, whatever. But you know what? The fact that they're racist, I get that. Like that's something I can relate with.
So I just wanted to introduce Bahamas again because that's what I was trying to do before.
Okay,
we get,
so-
no, it's okay.
Wait, did I interrupt you?
No, I interrupted you to do it, and then we all lost track. So I'm going to now say it again. I'm sorry
It's
for
not a
interrupting
sponsored
you.
ad, just to be clear.
Bahamas. Well, okay, that's part of the
Folks,
whole
do you
thing.
hate going to the Bahamas office?
Do you hate living in Germany? Pretend you're the Bahamas. The
There
whole
where the title comes from, right?
exactly. So it's we have a resurgence in again a very intellectual movement in Germany after Die Wende, the unification, and there's a split in a general. So correct me if I mess anything up. So there was a general left protest against this new Germany, and they were critical of people. Die Linke didn't exist yet, but of left politicians working within the state. And then among this group, there was a split between the anti-Deutsch groups and the non-anti-Deutsch and the others. What revolved around this is a somewhat famous quote, maybe even apocryphal, but everyone knows it, is that they said you might as well live in the Bahamas. and then they made their magazine Bahamas.
It's actually an incredible story. Like that just made me want to join the Antideutsch.
What's interesting about that is, one, speaking of how German the Antideutsch are, that is the same energy as the German media when every coalition needs to be named after a flag of a country they wish they could colonize. They just have Bahamas. I wish I was. I wish we could be there. But there's also this sense, I think, in the Bahamas, like the magazine is almost about. I mean, part of the Antideutsch. How to say this? It's this dialectic of a future utopia.
Just drop the D word.
There's a future.
I don't even know what that means, but I know
there's some idea. I think I'm using it right.
Rob, stop flexing.
If I'm not using it right, let the Geist of Hegel strike me down right now.
Just
see?
put Adorno.
Hand jobs.
That there's this dialectic between this fascination with utopia, future utopia, and they're and the Antideutsch, who fundamentally think that's unrealizable. Because they're German. And that, first of all, it's funny that they take the Bahamas as this, at the same time, this faraway land that to them could be utopia, but is not accessible, which is probably how they see Israel too. They think it's really sunny and on the beach. It's fascinating. That's what they kind of think about it at the same time. A lot of the Germans, at least.
I mean, the leftist or liberal Israelis who moved to Berlin, they get a really rough deal. They gave up all of that for Berlin winter.
One other thing is, it was very funny. I checked the Bahamas website right before we started recording, and their latest issue is just the whole magazine cover is just the Notre Dame on fire. And it's I think
Are you sure it's Breitbart?
1,500 years of the Abendland is enough.
Is that what it said?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Wait, I'm confused. What?
It is super confusing.
So now they're
hilarious.
Now they're what? Now, all right. So now the Antideutsch position is being pro-ISIS.
Israel is the third world. Maoist third world is.
I'm so confused.
But I think
wait, so they want
will-
the Abend? Wait. Abendland is which one? So wait, which one do we?
The West, the Occident.
We live in
Occident.
Occident.
Yeah.
Think of the.
Oh wait. And so they want the Abendland to go away then.
Yeah.
So they're.
But they also don't want the Orient because it has Muslims. So what do they?
Are you defending the Catholic Church?
I'm so confused. I don't know. Oh, wait, which one?
This is a Tradcath podcast.
Which one?
Here, let's do something very un-German for a moment. Let's not worry what they believe. What do you believe? So let's not try to do.
I mean, just from the title itself, just sounded like a really pro-ISIS fucking thing. But I think I misunderstand what Abendland means. Then
That's the
It's
West.
Occident. Yeah, it's the West.
oh, then okay,
Yeah.
then wait. So they said that
They
Abendland.
don't want
They don't want
this.
the Abendland
Yeah,
anymore.
exactly.
Okay, so it's
Yeah.
pro-ISIS. Okay, so I was right then. Okay, thank goodness.
It's an ISIS talking point.
But no.
Say that.
But I think Rob has a really important point there when he says this weird
Thank you.
you're welcome.
The dialectics.
Yeah, the dialectics.
When he said dialectic, I was like, yes.
It's because we brought up Adorno's fucking name and now everyone's talking about dialectics.
He's
over
also
here.
wearing glasses. He's very smart.
Oh.
Rob just came back from university, so.
Oh my god, you're like a perfect Antideutsch. No, but saying that this utopia or that can't exist because Antideutsche actually what they do and what they say is basically based on negation and critique. So in so far that it goes into empty critique and just repeating Adorno quotes.
I'm about to say they just sound like Adorno then at that point.
Yeah, exactly. So it goes nowhere. It's just what Germans love so much. If you sit in a seminar, in a German seminar, you have people critiquing shit, and not empty critique. It's just for the sake of critiquing stuff and saying oh yeah, but dialectics. not what you do.
No, what I do. What I do when I say Deutsche Welle und
Exactly. And it's a very arrogant behavior because if you ever I mean I've went to German university for 10 years and I was in school before so a long time and I was an Antifa once, so don't let me. I mean
So that's the thing.
Which means
are
she's
they?
going to bully Andy No, or whatever
No,
his name is.
no, but no, being anti-fascist is awesome. I'm just saying, like, in German you have AJZs, for example, so like Autonome Jugendzentren. And not all of them are Antideutsch or something, but you have like a very established Antideutsch culture in German Jugendzentren.
Culture.
I mean, the one that I had...
Like culture.
I think the one that I have, like in Bielefeld, is different. The one I went to,
Yeah.
but of course, you like it's basically where you gather around, do cultural stuff, and talk about Israel.
Should Germans be doing that in any context?
Nope.
This conversation can go one or two ways, and both of them are bad.
But yeah, my point was like you have that in seminars, and you have this arrogance with it. Like it's a very weird arrogance that's like, okay, my opinion is better, and I know like that what you're doing is anti-Semitism, and I'm German, and if you're Jewish, then it's still anti-Semitism, or you're just like hating yourself or something. It's really weird. Yeah.
Well, the thing that I found really weird is that, like, because you were telling me with your the seminar that you did for before you went to Latvia,
Which one?
the seminar that you did, the camp. I don't know the fuck what it
Oh,
was.
She
yeah,
could have
yeah.
done multiple seminars.
Yeah, no, but it was, I forget what it was called. The whatever thing for that, like your orientation before you went to Latvia.
Preparing.
And they had a
Latvia.
segment about Israel, which I thought was
They did,
very weird. And their line about that was actually pretty anti-Deutsch, which was like any critique of the Israeli state is actually anti-Semitism.
Well, actually, not. He presented a different kind of like anti-Semitism, and he also presented kind of like fetishizing Israel. So
Okay, never mind.
Like-
Then I misunderstood you then.
yeah, no. But you had people in this seminar defending like the anti-Deutsche position. So like,
Okay, then that's
Yeah,
what
yeah,
you're
yeah.
talking about
Yeah.
then. Okay.
Where do you go from here?
yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
I
I mean,
said
so I'll make this, maybe it's an unpopular take here, but like I don't think you can talk about contemporary anti-fascism in Germany today without also talking about the Antideutsch.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And I think, like most movements, ideology tends to be driven by a select few, and the rest kind of accept it as a conventional wisdom. So you don't have all ideological anti-Deutsche people. But this whole conversation, particularly around Palestine solidarity, becomes very polarizing. And there's a lot of people who don't have a strong position on it, but they kind of want to avoid it because they want to focus on the activism they're doing, like their feminist work, their abortion advocacy, Kurdish solidarity, and to them they see this as a divisive question, and so they take no position, which is in a way, of course, endorsing a dominant position.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But it doesn't mean they explicitly support Israeli occupation.
Yeah. I just like specifically like the Kurdish one. I always thought was a very weird one about it. Like anti-Deutsch.
Yeah, how does that?
But it also makes sense to me.
It
Like
does.
if you look at Palestine history, I mean, they have the PFLP, the PLO have a history of backing Saddam Hussein against the Kurds, or today, and where they're backing it. And I think the Syrian war is such a complex one, and we're not going to dissect it today.
We did that last week.
And it's now solved.
It's solved. Yeah, Syria.
But it makes bastards of everyone's reductive alliances in that the Kurds are working with Assad, but PFLP also supports Assad, and Erdogan is a huge ally of PLO, and so you just can go back and forth on this.
Yeah.
Very contradictory alliances. Yeah.
One easy summary of the anti-Deutsch could be, I think, Nick's
Daddy
talked.
issues.
Yeah. Well, Nick has talked about this on the podcast before when we talk about some leftist Americans, were super pro Assad or something. They're like, when you grow up and you realize well, this country's actually fucked up if you think about it, and no one is pointing this out, and then you're just like, whoever is against this is good, and it leads you to some interesting conclusions. And the anti-Deutsch, to some extent, is just a German
Child
twist
reacting
on it.
out
Yeah.
to their daddy.
The thing is that it's it doesn't like the layer on top of it is all this intellectualization that this is the way it has to be. We're in a world where I tried to read this one ISF article earlier about Israel and communism. It was hard.
Israeli communists were so fucking sick.
Yeah, they weren't talking about that. Sadly, they were talking about
God damn
of course
it.
that the
not.
state of Israel is future communism. I don't know.
Wait, what?
The Tech Valley, workers, something like that.
Topless EDM DJs for everyone.
Yes, that's communism to me.
That in order to have like a thriving tech industry, you have to have like a horrible what's it called? Deregulated markets and all that kind of shit. Israel definitely has those.
Okay, you can even cut.
I will
this if
say
it
this
doesn't-
as a U.S. person, though: their healthcare is something that we should be jealous of.
Oh yeah, because like that also goes into the U.S. like thing of like Israel can do it if they have 2 million people. Like that's the whole like why Bernie can't have his good healthcare plan.
Oh yeah, because it's
Yeah.
I mean, I find that to be very reductive, and people make this argument about Scandinavia. Scandinavia is all monolithic, and that's why they can have socialism. It's not tenable in the U.S., and it doesn't feel this way, I'll be honest, but I do think
I
U.S.
find
could
that-
have healthcare.
I find that really funny because I think a lot of people don't know this.
The U.S. can't have healthcare never.
I don't.
It's off the table.
A lot of people don't know this, like especially in the international left. But Ireland for years was getting the exact opposite of that argument, that we were too small to have a universal healthcare system.
That's fucking wild.
Yeah. And then for some strange reason, no one ever really like bothered to fact check Iceland or something. Like I don't know.
The thing is, and if you like explain it to anybody, you have to explain like, yeah, there's like, I think in 2006 Deutsche Welle said there were between 500 and 3,000 individuals who they could classify as anti-Deutsch. They
And they're card-carrying members of Adorno book. It's just a
Adorno
number of people who
Football
bought the book
Yeah,
by
you
Adorno.
just carry around a copy of what's that? What's the book that he wrote? Minimum Morale or whatever.
Minima Morales.
Yeah, you just carry that with you.
I think they
everywhere
just
you
summed
go.
up like all of the squats in Berlin and East Germany and like certain reading groups in like Freiburg, and then they're like, yeah, that's about it.
That's kind of actually cool.
Yeah.
That number probably is right.
But the reason to bring it up is because it is very interesting reflection on German mindset,
Yeah.
which exists in other parts of the German society, which we can bring up.
Yeah, I want you to talk about this case because you didn't. Yeah, but before that, maybe I give like a tiny background what Antideutsche like are about when it comes to that kind of stuff, because like you had during, like I said before, and I think I didn't say it on the pod like when we talked before, during Agenda 2010, like during Schröder's fun stuff of introducing Hartz IV and reducing the welfare state and social security,
Making Germany work.
The neoliberal wave of
exactly.
Germany from the
Introducing
center left party.
neoliberalism
Yeah.
to Germany. Finally, well, I was
10
waiting for
years
that
too late.
so long. When I was born, it should have been introduced.
France, kind of.
And you actually had Antideutsche like on the side of neoliberalism, actually like tearing down posters that were there to fight like the cuts of social security, and they were actually protesting and informing on the problem that Agenda 2010 brings with it. And you have like this weird argument sometimes in like Antideutsche that actually like critiquing regulations of finance markets would be anti-Semitism.
My favorite example of this, there's a horrible journalist, and it is personal for me, so I will name drop Alexander Nabert, who used to work for the Jungle World. Now he's working for the Taz. For one Halloween.
We love making fun of TOTS reporters on this podcast.
Yeah, and so like he was dressed up for Halloween, and it's not just his choice of Halloween wear, but he was dressed up as a Occupy Wall Street protester because for him it was an anti-Semitic discourse to talk about the 99 and the 1%. And so, you know, I would argue that Antideutsche often are seen in the ranks of Antifa or leftists, but then when it comes to class warfare, they're like nowhere to be seen. And now I'm actually kind of confused, like how that makes them leftists.
Exactly, and that is the point. Like who said that with the Marxist thing? And this is when I think like no, because there is like exactly when it comes to class warfare, or when it comes to critiquing capitalism, there's actually like a huge percentage of Antideutsche that would actually like go hand in hand with neoliberalism or any like kind of like capitalist convictions, because they would see any critique on it as like buying into this like Zionist word.
Yeah.
Protocols, elders of
Yeah,
Zion,
exactly. Yeah,
anti-Semitic
conspiracy stuff. Yeah.
When you say the 1%, you mean Jewish people, because that's what I was thinking, and I can't be the problem.
George Soros is actually funding a lot of things here in Germany to overthrow the momentum that the AfD
As in fact established.
There's always going to be an Alex Jones impersonation.
A few comments. One, more like Bomber Harris cut our welfare. Two, this is, I mean, it's going back to what I said earlier, making the U.S. comparison, but like a lot of this logic revolves around, and I know, and this is very relative, but like it is the idea that German imperialism and German racism is the paramount driving racism and imperialism of the world.
No.
Which is not the case. I mean, I understand.
Germany just helps out.
I
sell
understand in
weapons
some
to everyone.
aspects of Europe this could be understandable, but it's a flip side of the one of a group I'm fascinated by in Europe. They're like Pegada. Have you ever heard of them? It's a flip on Pegida, but it's against the Americanization of Germany, which you maybe
so
understand.
Patriotic Europeans
It's
against the
Americanization of Germany. It's
Are
like
they friends with
it's a
Putin?
play on. They love Putin. And
Yeah, of
Assad.
course, of
And they
course.
actually are quite anti-Semitic in their memes.
Anti-Semitic, but whenever they post an anti-Semitic photo, it only gets like 5 likes. It's really interesting.
But it's this reduction that like, well, they're the problem. The American, imperialism.
big tech. Whatever.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Which is, I would argue, maybe a little closer than pointing at German, but it's still this reductive idea that it's this one group or one that is causing the problems.
This is a pretty common thing because we discussed this last week. We were talking about how there's this whole tendency within Europe that the brutal European border regime is purely because of this refugee we made with Erdogan, and Erdogan is making us do it rather than
this existed before.
Yeah, and we were. Yeah.
Or the thing of German imperialism, German imperialism doesn't exist the way that then we like to imagine that it does. Of that, Germany is expanding. Of course, it's not that would be actual imperialism that doesn't exist.
But this is the interesting thing to me. When we talk about the Antideutsch, they're talking about the Holocaust, but there's this kind of silence around the colonialism of Namibia.
Yeah, of course, yeah. And I think that then there's a you have to then dissect then what colonialism then is at a much more I don't know.
And this is where the German left, I would also say not just the Antideutsche, but also the so-called anti-imp, the anti-imperialists, where there's a lot of lacking literature around anti-colonial movements and self-determination, not based around German discourse, but around oppressed people.
Yeah, because they also have murdered all those people.
And maybe it's I don't know why it's different in other countries. If it's because they had colonies more recently, like in France and UK, in Netherlands.
Yeah.
Whereas in Germany, it was limited to the 1920s, 1930s. But the effects of colonialism are still very present.
Well, I think it just it kind of comes into the general sense of just with the historical argument then of Germany being that the colonial project of Germany has 2 steps. The one being of what you're saying, Namibia, and was Ghana the other one, if I'm not mistaken?
No, Ghana was France. It was Tanzania.
Tanzania, yeah, okay.
And, yeah.
The very few colonies that Germany had in Africa, a lot of Germans will point to and be like, oh yeah.
And then many transferred to other countries. Namibia wasn't colonized last by Germany. I think it was Belgium afterwards.
And they went buck wild the Belgians did. But so there's that chapter, and then there's the chapter of the Nazism, which is colonialism at home, obviously. But then in the modern sense of then, I think when you look at Germany, part of them this colonial apparatus is hard to, because Germany is incredibly inactive unless you look at it then through the sense of NATO.
Or weapons exports.
Or weapons exports and stuff like that. And that's just something that then is, at least in my opinion, really German, that then Germany can have this contradicting viewpoint of that, we're really critical of the United States, but we'll still sell them weapons, or we'll still sell Turkey weapons, or we'll still sell Saudi Arabia is one of the biggest ones that Germany sells weapons to. And that is a thing that then I think a lot of these movements, especially Antideutsch, do not deal with in any way whatsoever, in a proper sense, because they just see it then in this typical, as most leftists do, they don't understand a modern sense of imperialism or colonialism. Colonialism is mostly done now through financial capital than it is through actual militarism, and David Harvey writes about this better than probably anyone else does. Not to quote a book, sorry, that's fucking nerd shit.
That's nerd shit.
The only point I wanted to make was what Julia said about that there's no politics, or in this case class struggle, left to do. That's part of this fatalistic vision of the Antideutsch. That's of a piece with the kind of fatalism.
I feel you should say all this like as Chijek, though. It would make much more sense.
I do have a little bit of a cold, so just exaggerate it.
In post.
Yeah, in post, you can do that. I believe in you. Like this,
Put on the Zizek filter.
this is a parallel with the anti-politics, but the flip side. Dare I even say dialectic? Am I using it right? Of the anti-Semitism paranoia, because that's what's the mayor of Berlin, the Müller, they said you can't expropriate houses because this will. He used way more stronger language than is humanly necessary. Does someone know the exact quote?
I mean, he said it would be so there's the Deutsche Wohnen Enteignen, and the Deutsche Wohnen is this horrible housing agency, not Jewish, just to be clear, and it's
just
Deutsche Bank
just shitty
is owned by the
landlords.
Jews and
Giant
to the mayor.
shitty
And-
landlord company.
Yeah, so he said it would be the second time in German history that this happens, that Jewish homes are taken.
This is. Oh
It's
my
just
God,
really
I know.
disingenuous.
But what it is it's saying politics is not possible, whether because everyone is anti-Semitic or whether like no wait, I had that backwards. The mayor is saying you can't do politics that's anti-Semitic. Well, I guess that's what the Antideutsch is saying too, right?
Yeah,
There's nothing
kind
left to do. You can't criticize the
Can't do
1%.
it.
That's also
this
anti-Semitism.
is-
So whether it's from the neoliberal point of view or this like radical left point of view, history is over. There's no more politics to do. There's no class struggle. You can never get outside the bounds of your little German guilt trap.
It's this, and this is how it is.
Yeah.
And this is what I.
German white guilt. My God.
Yeah, but this is what I meant when I said like like you said, there's no politics left, but also like there is just critique and empty critique, and this is like basically
So German.
Well, that's why it matters, is because this is a vision of the future. I mean, this exists to some extent in other countries too, that there's no politics left, there's just critique.
Yeah.
Typically,
Well, damn
wealthy
you,
nation.
Adorno.
Yeah, exactly.
But is it like, I made this joke off mic earlier, but is this genuinely, because my understanding of Antideutsch is it does kind of spring up largely after like the reunification of Germany.
Exactly.
There
That's
isn't
when-
an anti-Deutsch movement before.
That's when it started.
So like, is it literally just the German response or a German response to like Tina? There is no alternative. Like the end of history. There's no communism left. Capitalism won. It's capitalism forever. And is this a German response to that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that's the way that I perceive it as. I mean, it isn't so much like the Fukuyama-ist take of it. But
It has a different thing, of course, because like the situation with Germany and German history and Germany being divided, you don't have that in the other states, for example. You don't have Germany being the one doing that shit. You don't have the other countries split, you know. You don't have this like weird shit with like this weird like German guilt thing that people didn't know how to deal with, and I think it is
because Germany never had to deal with it before they reunified. You know.
Yeah, well, because you had a new enemy, and that was the East. So
yeah, but in all seriousness, is that when the Soviet Union collapses and the Cold War ends, Germany has its kind of like, you know, jumping into cold water movement of realizing that, like, oh, okay, like, and this isn't just the Antideutsch movement or whatever, but I think like the German left in general, of realizing that like what we talked about earlier, of like how these functions of colonialism, imperialism, all that kind of stuff works, and how Germany fits into it. Germany is a NATO member. Germany is like the largest economy of Europe that then isn't
Conditional on Brexit happening.
Yeah, you know, like it is even with in the 90s with the currency reforms and stuff like that, Germany came out unscathed for the most part.
It's the great economic miracles.
Yeah. And it is this kind of like now, you know, whether it be 5, 10, 15, whatever, how many years of realizing that Germany, I think that there is something that's at least decent about the anti-Deutsch movement, and like realizing that then where Germany fits into this puzzle piece of being a big puzzle piece for imperialism and for especially financial imperialism. Germany is number one.
I mean,
in Europe.
it's not like Antideutsch have a problem with imperialism.
No, but that's the thing. But there is ultimately then at least, in my opinion, there is a sense of that then like that they want to be against that, although it then inherently is not against it, but there is at least an understanding of that this exists. And I think that then that the shock of reunification then is that moment that then repositions Germany as in being the only actual Germany and France as we've discussed about them,
the
like
European
the
powers,
European powers of where we are right now, because the UK sure as fuck isn't one and will never be one ever again.
Fuck you, UK. No,
Yeah,
sorry.
they're like strictly speaking, they're way too weak of a country to ever become another European power. But that there is at least like, because we were talking earlier, like the honesty of that, like Antideutsch have a few things right.
Yeah.
And I think that then if that was repositioned differently to then understand how German imperialism actually functions, it would be a pretty empowering movement.
We should point that out, I think, at the end. Like,
Yeah. And it's not just like this antiquated analysis from the 90s. Like, between the 90s and 2006, most public schools, most government institutions were not waving the German flag. And then Germany hosted a FIFA. And I'm very US, so I don't know anything about football, like not your football. And now you see everywhere German flags being waved. And for some, it's a very far-right nationalist, but it's also made patriotism acceptable again.
And of course that is problematic. And that is, I actually remember when there was like a VM, what is it called?
World Cup in English.
Cup?
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm tired.
It's fine.
The World Cup. When was it again?
2006 was in Germany.
Yeah.
I was 6.
When FIFA
This was my high time of being in. This was my high time of being in the Antifa in Bielefeld, Bad Oeynhausen, etc. And of course, I hung out with people that were like also like some of them were anti-Deutsch.
You were anti-Deutsch, just say it. Your family was anti-Deutsch, your best friends were anti-Deutsch.
No, I wasn't anti-Deutsch, but of course there were people that were anti-Deutsch. Like,
I just wanted to put you.
The aspects of anti-Semitism in Europe are a little harder for me to grasp as an American because it is more real here in so many ways. That I don't understand completely. But I do feel it's still operating. Even anti-Semit. I'm just going to quote from this article because it's very good.
That's what you wanted to do.
I'm going to put it in the show notes.
Are we quoting Adorno?
Yeah.
Yes.
Rob's doing king shit.
This will be in the show notes. It's called Jewоphobia. It was in Salvage magazine, a left-wing magazine in the UK. And there's a ton of excellent points that I can't say. Just read it. But one that he keeps coming back to is that anti-Semitism itself and fears over anti-Semitism are both surging because any kind of class language has been stripped away, and that this is the only thing that fills the vacuum on either side. So we mentioned the example before.
You got Ayn Rand and Marx. Take your pick.
we mentioned before that like any kind of class politics will be criticized by these kind of radical leftists or the neoliberal state as anti-Semitism, and yet I just found this quote very evocative. That in the days of I'm reading from the article now. In the days of there is no alternative, we are all Panglossian pessimists. We live in the best of all possible worlds, and it is shit. In such times, the appeal of anti-Semitism is not as it once was, that it purports to identify a cancer easily expunged while leaving the broad structure of social relations intact. Rather, like David Icke's lizards, the attraction of the omnipotent Jew is neoliberal anti-Semitism is that he cannot be abolished or he won't be. Skipping down a bit, not in the demand for another final solution, but as a cynical shrug directed against dreamers and radicals. You won't be able to change anything anyway, says the anti-Semite. They will never let you. Just skipping down a little bit, we should identify not only the nominally anti-neoliberal content of contemporary anti-Semitism. I think that's what people traditionally think of as anti-Semitism, fighting this neoliberalism, but also the degree to which the neoliberal ideology spurs anti-Semitism as its supportive spouse, whether that means Israel as a part of this kind of the tip of the spear and the an outpost in the Middle East for like Western imperialism.
Democracy.
That this is like
thing that they apparently have.
he compares it to classic models of anti-Semitism, which regarded as both anti-modern and constitutive of modernity. It's these twin aspects of modern anti-Semitism that, just to quote from the conclusion, surge amid a general discursive shift from assumptions of neoliberal hegemony to talk of the apparent failure of neoliberal politics. This is the world that we inhabit in the delayed aftermath of 2008. The demolition of those institutions and cultures once capable of reproducing left-wing consciousness has been so stark in some parts of the world that people grasp for cruder, more base, and above all, more pessimistic languages of ostensible anti-elitism.
What's frustrating to me is this kind of both academic and activist effort to distinguish anti-Semitism from other forms of discrimination, and I think there can be differences, but like whether, you know, you see different forms of solidarity in the Jewish communities in the US, but also in Berlin. Like recently there was the Roma Center, the Roma Memorial, and Romas are often, the Roma and the Sinti people are often excluded from discourses around the Holocaust, and most of those people were ineligible or not living when the government agreed to make reparations. So the Jewish community privately funded the Roma Memorial that we have in Berlin today. In the recent anti-Semitic attacks you had on the synagogue in Halle, people where the whole discourse completely missed the opportunity to talk about how both a synagogue and a kebab shop were attacked. And you could talk about it, whether it's, you know, racism of two different kinds or whether it's racism and anti-Semitism. I'll save that for the academics. But this opportunity was missed to look at how both Islamophobia and anti-Semitism share the same enemy. And anti-Semitism, even in Germany, it's 80% from the far right, which Antideutsch talks about, but we don't often talk about how the far right is intersectional in their bigotry. The left can also be intersectional in combining and not, you know, playing oppression Olympics. We can combine the different struggles that are important for people. I could understand for someone not from Europe that the Holocaust would not be the most important event for them, like it is for me because I come from a European family. But in general, you of course see this very kind of disingenuous weaponization of humanitarianism. Like whether you recognize the Armenian genocide or not is not an academic debate, it's a political debate.
Now, Yoni, thank you for coming on the podcast. You work on some pretty interesting stuff here in Berlin, stuff that I should probably be more involved with for, you know, bettering my material conditions.
But you're Irish and stupid. And
I am Irish. I come from a long, proud tradition of being scabs. Tech Workers Coalition. Hey. Let's go.
Thank you. I'm really excited to talk about it. You know, I am a software developer, and like most software developers, I don't really have a avenue to express my, to organize or to get political. And so I decided to found the Tech Workers Coalition Berlin about 4 months ago. It's part of a larger movement, everything from the demilitarization of Google and Microsoft to also just organizing your local workplace. In Germany, we have workers' councils, employee resource groups, and unions. And at the end of the day, I think tech workers also are workers, and we should join the larger movement against capitalism.
So create your own Tech Worker Soviet, and we'll meet you on the other side, which will be Tech Worker Soviet Union.
Yes.
It's like fully or mostly automated luxury space
That's
communism.
fucking sick.
Oh, I love that one.
Do you have separate Soviets for each programming language?
Absolutely.
I feel like in Berlin it wouldn't be really popular if it was fully automated.
Yeah, true.
What can people do to support the Tech Workers Union? If they're a tech worker, if they're in Berlin, if they're not, I don't know.
Yeah, so we have a website, techworkersberlin.com. You could also use Google. We're really dependent on Google for giving us attention, so there's that very obvious conflict. I guess you could use DuckDuckGo, but who uses that? Oh yeah, there's Ecosia in Berlin for the eco-conscious viewers. I'm not one of them, I guess, because I use airplanes.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Anyway, so we have our regular meetings every Tuesday. We now, for all of November, we're having a labor organizing series where we're looking at how to map out potential leaders and to really add a kind of organizing analysis. Because like I have experience as activism, as a rabble rouser, as a shit poster, but that doesn't make a workers' council. I tried, but it doesn't.
Even though shitposting is the highest form of activism, the skills just don't translate. Different skill set.
Cool.
And you were saying this is like part of like a wider movement. So would it be fair to say if our listeners are in other parts of Europe, there's possibly something going on?
Yeah, definitely. So Tech Workers Coalition is, just one of many different movements. You have chapters in, so it's mostly North America at the moment, but you have chapters in London, you have chapters in Bangalore, India.
Oh,
'cause these are tech
that's
hubs,
good. Yeah.
And technology companies have been really globalizing, so it really makes sense. I mentioned earlier in the episode I'm not going for biotech, but I'm going to Zurich to meet with Google organizers because just 2 weeks ago, Google organizers tried to meet with Silicon Union, which management didn't like very much.
Oh.
And so management told them the meeting was canceled, and they held the meeting anyways. And so what I would like for our listeners to hear is both if you consider yourself a tech worker, consider getting organized. But two, when most people hear of tech workers, they think of people who make a lot of money or privilege are the problem. And like, I'll be the first to say I make 64,000 euros, which by Berlin standards makes me the 1%. And yeah, check it out. It's exactly that.
You only paid for all of our drinks tonight, and I was
True.
I was very impressed. Like, he's gonna pull up in a Lamborghini next time I see him or some shit. I don't know. I'm waiting. That is how much the Lamborghini costs. It's below 64,000, right? I don't know my prices.
How much does a milk cost? 1 milk.
Yeah, I tried to buy one YouTube, and they said it wasn't possible. I was really offended.
I hate when that happens.
Yeah.
You go to the YouTube store and then
They're like, I want one YouTube, and they're like, no, it's a total scam. Yeah.
They're much cheaper in the Späti, so if you buy direct.
yeah, that's what I've heard.
Yeah.
Actually, I like to go to Penny and get my YouTubes there. It's always cheaper.
They only have Vimeo at Penny.
I'm confused now.
Yeah,
Look
so-
at DuckDuckGo there.
And is there anywhere that our listeners can find you personally?
Sorry, say it again.
Is there anywhere online that our listeners can find you?
Your only
Yeah,
address
definitely.
is
Your address. Yeah.
Just Google me.
Don't dox him.
If you go to https//, pay attention, www, that's 3 W's, shu, that's twice, I'm not repeating myself, it's twice, gah.com, or just Google my name, Yonatan Miller, you'll find it. or look at the show notes. We have show notes.
All right.
imagine like if there is like one person over the age of like 80 who listens to our shows being like, oh, well, he was a nice guest. So.
It's just writing it. Oh, come on.
You forgot the colon, so they're not going to reach it.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Yoni, for coming.
Yeah,
it was
definitely.
it was an absolute pleasure and a wonderful time.
I think we end this on a Adorno quote.
Ended on
yeah.
an Adorno quote, baby.
We didn't have enough. We only had like 7,
just a
so let's hear
random
the
one.
8th.
Just a
Is
random
it be in
one.
German or English?
English.
Yeah.
I go with English one. True thoughts are those alone which do not understand themselves.
Yeah,
God,
wow.
Adorno's a fucking fortune cookie for Germans. Is he not?
I think that I heard that in a
He would be
Logic
popular
rap.
on Instagram.
Oh God, Adorno's a fucking Instagram thought,
No, he's a backpack rapper.
or that too. It's the same thing where it's like Adorno just posts a fucking hot photo of himself and he just posts that quote
It just says
underneath it.
true thoughts are those alone which do not understand themselves.
Yeah, no, I'm sliding into those DMs.
Yeah,
Dito.
it's just him after like a workout, just fucking like doing this.
Actually, there's a very sexy picture of him
In
in a
one-piece
onesie.
bathing suit.
bathing
Yes, I've seen it.
yeah.
Wait, really? I'm gonna look it up.
Adding this to the hentai.
Oh, I'm gonna. It's somewhere. It's somewhere in my filing cabinet.
Yeah, on this note of Rob going into his filing cabinet, there's naked Adorno photos. We
He's
will
not
see
naked.
you- Yeah, he is not. We'll see you guys all next week. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.
Bye.
Aruba, Jamaica, ooh, I wanna take you. Bermuda, Bahama, come on, pretty mama. Key Largo, Montego, baby, why don't we go? Jamaica, off the Florida Keys. There's a place called Kokomo. That's where you wanna go. to get away from it all. Bodies in the sand, tropical drink melting in your hand. We'll be falling in love to the rhythm of a steel drum band down in Kokomo.